It's midday on Valentine's Day, and Benson Kamau, a flower vendor in Nairobi, is a worried man. On what should have been his busiest day of the year, flower sales have been low.
Before, sales were high compared to now. I think high taxes are the reason people are staying away.
And that sentiment is echoed by the Kenya Flower Council. In 2021, horticulture earned the country $1.4 billion, with the value of cut flowers at $1 billion. But despite the relative growth, KFC says the industry is struggling and faces an uncertain future resulting from negative policies.
Between the year 2020 and the year 2022, within our membership alone, we have seen at least 8 farms closing. And basically, it's because they cannot cope with the cost of doing business here.
The council says high cost of air freight, high taxation of the sector, and non-access to tax refunds are impacting the industry. In 2021, for example, the country exported 210,000 tons of cut flowers despite the pandemic, but in 2022, that figure dropped by 15,000 tons.
There are too many taxes, too many levies that are implemented arbitrarily without the participation of the sector, and which have an immediate impact.
Horticulture was the country's second largest foreign exchange earner in 2021, with 40% of all flower exports sold in Europe. The council says it is ready to engage the government on possible solutions to avoid closures and maintain a competitive edge. Bobot Nagila, CGTN, Nairobi, Kenya.
Well, let's now delve further into the fate of that sector. We're joined by Clement Tulezi, the CEO of the Kenya Flower Council, and he joins us now online with more details. Great to have you with us, Mr. Tulezi. Certainly happy Valentine's Day to you. Now, of course, pointing to high freight charges and those high domestic taxes, those are not new challenges for the flower sector or horticulture sector in Kenya. Are these still the biggest concerns for you, or are there other challenges that is sort of pulling the sector back?
I think just like a while ago, probably the last 2-3 years since COVID, these are still the most important factors that influence our sector. Of course, we have other challenges that have to do with the market, and we are trying to deal with that. But locally, when we assess our environment at the moment, it's about the high cost of freight. It has not come down. Today, we are still doing $2.9 per kilo, which is quite exorbitant when we look at our margins. And we have seen this year, especially the inclusion of many levies and taxes that are eating into the margins. So by and large, we can still say those are the two major local challenges that we have, because we produce our products here. And if we cannot bring down the cost of production and probably logistics, then attracting the market competitively becomes quite an issue. Also because we are not the only ones. We have other countries that are producing probably much cheaper and exporting much cheaper than we are doing. So how can we compete the likes of Ethiopia, Colombia, Ecuador, and the rest, if we cannot look at our local conditions in terms of production and also how we move that produce? So by and large, those are the major two factors that we are still looking at.
Mr. Tulezi, it is quite sad to hear vendors, especially on a day like today, which is Valentine's Day, complain about the fact that they're not selling as much as they used to. So paint us a picture as to what extent the sector has been impacted by these challenges, both in terms of exports and also domestically, when we talk about different segments of the supply chain.
It has become very difficult over the last couple of month, close to 1 year. The global inflation that we see in most of our markets have meant that people have to make choices between if they're going to spend their money on essentials or go for ornamentals such as cut flowers. And the prices have not been stable. There is a lot of uncertainty as we speak about the market. and therefore we are not making enough in the market as we have always done, because the pricing have been very, very low for a long period of time. But when you look at locally, the cost of doing business has suddenly gone up. And it's not just us feeling it. The inflation also at a local level. People don't have disposable cash where they can be able to spend on flowers. And that is why a day like today, if you walk through the streets of Nairobi, you don't feel the buzz that has always been there accompanying Valentine, because people have to make choices. They are squeezed a bit in the corner with the bills they have to pay, much higher probably than they have paid before. They have, our children are back to school and they have spent money on that. And people are just looking at essentials. So they put the purchase of cut flowers for a day like this on the back banner. Of course, we're encouraging people, come in and support. This is an important sector, but at an individual level, people have to make choices. So we have not seen growth of consumption of cut flowers locally. Today, we are still talking of less than 1% of local consumption. And this is not good. We're trying to encourage as many people to come and support us, because this is our industry. And by people coming in, being able to buy, we are maintaining jobs. We are injecting more money through our sector into the economy. So we are an important part of the economy, but we need to up a bit on local consumption, which we are not seeing under the current circumstances.
Well, when it comes to the way forward, as we mentioned, these are not new challenges the sector. Some of these challenges, they're not new that the sector is facing right now. Now, you suggested solutions such as looking for alternatives to transporting flowers so that you can compete better on a global stage. You're also talking about engaging the government further on those heavy taxes. What progress has been made in these areas? And give us more insight into the solutions to these issues that you're facing.
Yeah, we are trying to do what we can. We know that we have a new government in place. And with this, we believe that it's a government that has an ear, that can listen to the plight of growers and exporters. And because in the manifesto of the new government, they were very clear that they are putting agriculture in the front banner. And therefore, we were pleased that at least for once, we have a government that will be very responsive. And therefore, with us engaging them, they can be able to see sense in a lot of practical solutions that we are bringing onto the discussion table. For example, when we look at freight, we are saying that it is possible for government to give us a bit of rebate, give the airlines a bit of rebate on some of the charges, including landing rates and many other charges that airlines incur when they come into Nairobi. And with that, then we can encourage more people, more players into having an interest to come into Nairobi, but also open it up a bit to have much more airlines coming into Nairobi. At the moment, we know that we have a quota for the airlines that are supposed to service Nairobi. Of course, we know that we have an airline, the national carrier, Kenya Airways, to protect. But because Kenya Airways does not have freighters, the sensible thing, when we have a period like this, what we call our peak season, allow more foreign airlines to come in. Those are some practical solutions that we are bringing in, and we are not saying that it has to be forever. We highly believe that probably at some point, Kenya Airways could give us some solution. But before that happens, why not allow others to come in? But on the taxes, we also believe that just looking at our sheer size as an industry, the government can give us a bit of holiday on some of those taxes just to spur up the growth of the sector. We believe that we need to expand the cake and not squeeze the cake by milking just the few exporters. We can, of course, we can always have more people coming in and more investment, and therefore the government will make even much more money if by creating a conducive environment, more investors will come in. So those are practical solutions that we are bringing on the table. We haven't had much of a success, I will tell you, just because we have a new government and we gave them a few months just to bed in and then start engagement. From the beginning of this year, January, to be specific, we started engaging with them. We are moving slowly, steadily. We just want to see how it goes. We believe that probably there is some light at the end of the tunnel. But where we are now, we haven't had any breakthrough in a lot of our discussion. But we remain open. We really remain open with practical solutions. If we sit with government, we believe that this sector can only not be led by the private sector. The government has a place, private sector has a place, and the two of us, we can sit down, look at these challenges and find practical solutions that will have a win-win both for government and the private sector.
Well, that is certainly disappointing to hear. And I'm curious to know then what your outlook is for the sector, especially this year, because already 2022 exports did not meet expectations. They recorded about 15,000 tons less compared to the year before. So what then are your expectations for the sector this year?
We want to be cautiously optimistic. I'm using those words carefully because we don't see much change, but we believe that if our discussions with government can yield fruit quickly, then we have an opportunity to turn this around in the shortest time possible. The advantage we have probably over many other sectors is that we export every day. So any change that will come in that can be able to bring solutions to some of these challenges will probably have an immediate impact, unless it is something that has to be implemented gradually. But if it's things that can move quickly, we can be able to turn this around. But if the current situation remains, we don't see much growth because the industry is struggling. A lot of people that are within this sector are asking, should we continue with this business or what should we do? We are not saying that the industry is closing, but we are looking at an industry that is at a standstill. Yet, in the years past, we have been expanding in double digits. And we know the potential that is there for this sector to grow. And that is why we are crying, saying there are areas in which we can work with government quickly to realize the highest potential that is there for this sector. So that is our cry, and we believe that we can be able to turn around. As I said, we are still optimistic that it's possible, but a lot of things, a lot of work needs to be done. We, as I said, we are ready. Let's sit together, private sector and government, look at these issues and see what they can come to as quickly as possible.